Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another installment of ISV Connect Live. It's such an honor and pleasure to have the CEO of XAPT, Mohan, on the live stream with us. But before we get to him and do intros, again, I'll set the tone for the event and kind of best practices as we have this conversation today. So one, we would love to hear from where you're watching from. So anywhere around the world, whether you're watching from Canada, Latin America, Europe, or maybe in Asia, if you're up super late, we'd love to hear from you. And just if you want to just type in the LinkedIn window to just comment, as you see in the ticker stream below, where you're watching from, we just definitely want to give you a shout out. And we truly appreciate you spending time with us in the 30 minutes we have this morning to have the conversation. The other is that as you're watching or listening to the dialogue, if it's something that you enjoy, you like in regards to the conversation Mohan and I are having, feel free to utilize one of the LinkedIn icons at the bottom, the like or celebrate or support or whatever it is that you're comfortable with. Definitely do that, because that also gives us a point of view and understanding that actually there's useful dialogue and content that is occurring. So with that being said, Mohan, welcome. I do want to say that I was actually watching from one of my favorite spots in the California area. He's watching from Napa Valley, where he's enjoying some well-deserved time off. But Mohan, welcome to the show. We can get started with, give a little background to everyone listening. Of course, you being the leader of XAPT, give a little background to yourself. And then, of course, one thing that you would be open to sharing about yourself that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Sure, thank you. Hello, everyone. And Brian, thank you. Thanks very much for this opportunity. As Brian said, I'm currently on vacation, so I got up early to speak to the rest of the world. So thank you for joining, whoever has joined. So my name is Mohan Naraine. I'm the CEO of a company called XAPT. We've been in business for, over 21 years. And primarily we build software and serve the heavy equipment space. I'll define what heavy equipment is for a minute. So I spent pretty much my entire career working with dealers, and dealers of many kinds of dealers, I guess, in the retail space. So those would be automotive. Spent some time with automotive dealers pretty much around the globe, working with many manufacturers in Asia, in the U.S., in Europe, and North Africa, etc. Spent some time living in the Middle East as well. So ran a business for ADP in the Middle East, where I've established an entity for them and worked with automotive dealers. So spent time with automotive dealers and then also with truck dealers. I was a strategy guy for the truck dealers, PACCAR, DAF, Mack, and Daimler Trucks, etc. in the US for a number of years. And then most recently, a few years ago, I joined XAPT. And part of the reason to work with XAPT was really to take a great platform and help the dealers to realize the benefits of sort of transforming their businesses. And when I say dealer, it's really everybody that has either works in the retail space and has a connection back to a manufacturer. And in this case, we have a number of heavy equipment dealers that really work with manufacturers and also work in the retail space. So my entire career has been sort of in this dealer space, and I know it very well. And this is pretty much my priorities for the XAPT business, is to help the equipment dealers sort of transform their business. Okay, so that's a little on my background. What's not on LinkedIn? Well, as Brian said, I do enjoy California wines, and I decided to have a little break for a week and come out and spend some time on the West Coast, which is obviously one of my favorite places in the U.S. And spent a couple of days in San Francisco. I'm in 3 nights in Napa, some time in Monterey and Carmel Beach, and lovely spots. And then I head back to Toronto. So background: I live in Toronto, Canada. I run this business. We are a software company headquartered in Budapest, Hungary, and America's office is in Miami, Florida. And I happen to live in Canada, so we travel a lot. We live in this virtual world. We have great solutions like Teams that helps us to kind of connect the world, and that's what I do. Okay,
I love it, Mohan. No, that's fantastic. I guess one question I would have for you: what is your favorite? Since you're in the Napa Valley, and I know I didn't ask you this in the pre-show, but what is your favorite wine? Is it a red? Is it a white? It's red. It's red.
Okay.
Okay,
And,
great.
and I have 5 wineries on the list today, and 4 tomorrow. So, but I'm not a heavy drinker. So listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not a drinker, but I'm a gardener. I love landscaping, and I love all these beautiful spots that all the wonderful gardens and that you see around all of these wineries. If you haven't been out in this part of the world, so yeah, I just soaking up the sun and the landscape. So
I love it. Great,
yeah.
Great, Mohan. I appreciate that. So let's do a quick shout out to all the people. Thank you for all of you who are watching live in this conversation with Mohan from XAPT. We have someone from Dubai, Sanjeed, if hopefully I'm saying your name right. So thank you for joining. Of course, Ewan, watching from great England, UK. Olaf from Belgium. So thank you. A lot of Europeans today, was fantastic. Cyprus, great to see someone from Cyprus, Cincinnati, Ohio. So, of course, Mohan, as you mentioned, very global audience. Louisville, Kentucky. Thanks, Stephen. Milwaukee, Anna, thank you for joining in and listening. Another person, Tibor from Cyprus as well, different portion of Cyprus. And then Rose from your neck of the woods, Mohan from Canada. So continue to put it in there. We'll do a quick shout out. And then last one, Hungary, Balaz, again, I'm probably not mispronouncing your name, but Budapest, Hungary. So great. Thank you so much. And also during the dialogue, if there are questions that you may have about the dialogue that Mohan are having, please put them in the window, because this is going to be one of those interesting conversations when you think about what Mohan was saying, equipment management, retail management around heavy equipment, like can imagine big trucks or big pieces of equipment. That's really the dialogue we're going to have today with Mohan. So give us a little bit of background. You kind of talked about the company, Mohan, but when you think about the challenges that organizations like these dealers are experiencing, what are some of the outcomes or challenges that XAPT does that works in conjunction with Microsoft to drive better outcomes and business processes with the end customers that we serve together?
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, as I tell the audience and certainly for the employees that work for us, is that we live in a very complicated technology-driven world, which is really where Microsoft is, and certainly XAPT and everybody else, right? I mean, I'm out here, believe it or not. I've navigated myself here just on a mobile phone with no paper, right? So everything is laid out on my phone. All the itinerary and flights and everything is on the phone. I don't know what would happen if this phone didn't boot up, by the way, right? Because I have no paper, right? So this is the world we live in. So when we look at the customers that we serve today, first of all, they are heavy equipment dealers. We tend to spend a lot of time with Caterpillar dealers, and I'll talk about some of those in a minute. But the challenge we have as technology, I guess, providers is that these are very simple people, and they work with heavy equipment. So they sell, specifically Caterpillar, they sell big yellow iron. This is what I tell everybody, right? Nice. No different than a BMW dealer that would sell, an M5 or an X3 or whatever it is, right? But the dealers are really just about looking after their customers, right? Building brand loyalty and looking after their customers. So they tend to be very, I would say, simple people that grew up in, very old family-owned businesses and are now, adopting this technology, now getting to the technology curve, right? So they come from, again, working in a very old industry, very mature industry. Mm-hmm. And where we are today, we're saying, listen, what you need to do is digitally transform your business, right? So these are probably 2 words that are misused or used most frequently around the world, right? So what does that really mean? And the challenge we have as a business is to take everything and try to simplify it. Okay, how do you inquire on a part? How do you sell it? How do you book service? How do you bring this equipment in? How do you service it? And how do you finance a deal, et cetera, et cetera? So we provide a lot of complex software, and I think the biggest challenge we have as a technology company is how do we simplify that? Right? How do we have to make the transition and simplify things that don't become very, very complicated? Because we live in this complex world, right? So that's really the challenge: is how do we take this ERP? So for everybody here on the phone today, on video, we develop and sell a very large ERP system that's based on a great Microsoft platform that we call Dynamics. Okay. And it covers everything across the business. It's fully integrated. So you have everything from sales, from CRM, parts, service, rental. These dealers rent equipment as well. And then also field service or field solutions, right? Because you've got big bulldozers and you've got excavators that, unlike a BMW, you can't drive a bulldozer to a dealership and have it repaired when it's broken, right? So you need to have an app or something that's mobile, that's running on a phone, where somebody can go out and service the equipment in the field, etc. So there's lots of technology, and then the dealers have a lot of technology that's also coming from the manufacturer. So Caterpillar, for example, has a lot of technology in the field and a lot of technology behind the scenes. So you have a lot of simple people that really, I call them simple because they're not technologists, right? They are people that, sell and service equipment. Okay. So the challenge, Brian, back to your question, I think the challenge we have is how do we make it simple for them?
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the sales cycle, when Anna Miller's on the phone today, Anna's part of our sales team, and it's really just their long sales cycles to try to, show them all this technology and how do you try to make their lives simpler? And believe it or not, during the first year, their lives are pretty much disrupted. They're going through a bit of a change. And some of the members of the large project organizations don't necessarily make it, right? Because they can't make that transition. So as we tell dealers, the big challenge is for them is identifying people that can change. Okay, because part of this is evolutionary, and we're driving change. Okay, so big challenge, but we've been in business now. We are in business now for 21 years. This is what we tend to do, and we're equipped to, build our own products. We install our own products and support them as well. Right. So the teams that we have are very focused on this whole adoption and how to make it simple. Okay. I know it's a long answer to your question, but I hope that gives you a little bit of insights into the challenge from the dealer's end, right?
Yeah, no, it was what a great response, Mohan, because I love your dialogue on yellow iron, because when if especially as a little kid, you think about playing with trucks and all that stuff, and even when you go into building construction and all that stuff, you see, like to your point, backhoes, a lot of heavy equipment being done and used. And that conversation of how you put it succinctly of simplify is such a great word, because that's the thing is people are used to, because you're right, change is hard. And I think one of the interesting things when you talk about digital transformation that would probably be a good follow-up question to your answer, which is, did you see any of these equipment dealers changing or accelerating their decisions or conversations because of COVID, because of the pandemic, because of the fact that some of the things, to your point of like having a phone and having digital operates things that you kind of have to do, because otherwise your traditional things that what you used to doing were disrupted because the way that people do business now, and of course not having people physically in an office or physically face-to-face with customers probably accelerate, well, I would assume, did it accelerate some of the conversations that XAPT started to see in that transformation?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I can talk a little bit about COVID and that whole adoption and change. But we were very lucky this year. We took three dealers live this year, and they were done remotely. One was done in Suriname, one was done in Minneapolis, which is a very, very, very large customer of ours, and the other one was done in Canada. It was an equipment dealer in Canada.
Great.
So throughout this whole process, we also shifted through this COVID challenge. We shifted our whole implementation model to a lot more remote training, remote QA and testing, and running all of those sessions remotely. And I do have to say, I do have to give Microsoft a plug, because if you look at where all our dealers are today, a lot of them now, because we're built on a Microsoft platform and because of all the things that they're seeing with Teams in particular, a lot of our customers now are either on Teams or looking to acquire Office 365 and Teams as part of their standard, operating platform, which is good.
Yeah.
Because we've done a lot of our training and hand-holding and remote support on Teams. So we've got SWAT teams, we've got chat groups set up all over the world. And because we haven't been able to fly in airplanes, we've been able to do a lot more on Teams. And the technology is there, Brian. It hardly ever crashes. It works well, and it's awesome.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, absolutely. So that whole shift, and even within the dealerships now, a lot of their project teams have been adopting technology and doing things remotely, including a lot of the end user training. Some of it's been done remotely, some of it been done on site, etc. But I have to give you some idea of scope and the size of these projects. So I spent a bit of time, as I said, in the automotive world, as well as with truck and other manufacturers. But when you look at the dealers that we serve today, we tend to skew up market, simply because the dealers that are going to embrace this change, they have to have resources, right? They have to have money, they have to have people, and they have to have the whole capacity to change. So we tend to skew up market. So we are dealing with customers that are in thousands of users, thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And our largest customer today is in Malaysia, Sime Darby Industrial Group. And they are 5,500 users on Dynamics and looking to upgrade in the next 2 years. So these are very, very large organizations. We just went live with a customer in Minneapolis, which is our first big Dynamics 365 customer. And there were 1,857 users, over 20 locations. And for Microsoft and XAPT, this was a huge accomplishment, right? We've got lots of you've got lots of implementations of customer engagement running around the world, et cetera. But on the F&O platform, this is a significant thing. And it went live and it hung together and it works. Of course, we're going through some, stabilization and user acceptance at the moment. But so, yeah, it's interesting. We also have a couple of big dealers going live, again, one in the Netherlands, a couple of thousand users in November, and a large project in Latin America with another cat dealer group. Again, another few thousand users in Latin America. So big projects running around the globe, and a lot of it is around changing legacy systems and just reprogramming the headsets of people to look at things differently, right? That's how you make this transformation. So yeah, long answer to your question, but
no, I love it. No, that's so great. We're going to get to talking about the end customers, because hearing the stories that you just described, just the breadth of what you guys do and the complexities that you try to simplify is amazing. And so you talked about, of course, Teams, but then the 21 years that XAPT has been in business. Give us a sense, Mohan, because of course you've been exposed to the Microsoft ecosystem for a few years now, working very closely with us. What's that been like? Because of course we have people listening on this weekly conversation, because sometimes they're not just Microsoft employees and not just potential customers, buyers, but they're also other partners who are listening to the fact that, hey, they either are partnering with Microsoft in some form or fashion, maybe not on the BizApp side, or maybe they are, or we also have partners that listen to this going, oh, I've never worked with Microsoft before. What is that partnership experience like with such a big company like Microsoft? What has that experience been like for you and for the XAPT team?
Well, it's been pretty good so far. We engage, just for everybody in the call, we engage with Microsoft in several different facets. So first of all, our sales team engages on lots of co-selling activities, marketing and co-sale in several different parts of the globe. In fact, I heard a positive story last week. We're working with a very large prospect, probably as large as our largest customer, in Johannesburg, South Africa. And it's been great because the feedback has been positive. In fact, some of the customer demos and workshops in South Africa were run by a Microsoft finance and product consultant, right? So Microsoft's come to the table in the start of the sales cycle when we identify and we start to work through that process. So they've been involved in sales and marketing, involved in obviously the product roadmap alignment between what we do. We build on top of the dynamics layer. So engineering and alignment with product strategy and roadmap, Mike Ehrenberg's team, for example, there is good alignment there. We're part of the premier support, I guess, ecosystem and family. So we get good support from Microsoft as we kind of work through those whole issues with customers, etc. And then, we do have a new executive sponsor who's been assigned to work with us. We're part of the Inner Circle family at Microsoft. So we have an opportunity when I'm back next week. I have an opportunity to actually invite Michael Griffiths, who is our executive sponsor, will be at us at a customer location in North Carolina to actually listen to the voice of the customer and help with some more alignment on that side. So we work in several different, in line with several different ways with Microsoft. The Fast Track team, I think some of you may not be familiar with Fast Track, but the whole Fast Track team also engages with us on project deliveries. So they've been involved in the deliveries of the projects in Minneapolis, in the Netherlands, and obviously in Bogota, Colombia. And the Fast Track teams has been sitting with us side by side to ensure that everything we do throughout the project aligns and is the best, sort of the best approach for customers as well, right? So deep engagement with Microsoft at all angles, pricing, licensing, lots of other, it's not perfect, mind you, but we do have to work on a couple of things from our end as well. Let me address the ecosystem. So part of what Microsoft will tell you is that Dynamics is a great platform, which it is. It's easy to plug into the platform as well. But one of the things we need to do as XAPT is to make sure that we have a better relationship with all of the partners potentially in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So we build a great product for this industry, but we don't have everything that the dealer is looking for, mm-hmm. right? So we don't build great HR software, but there's several different talent management solutions that come to the table that are part of the demonstrations and can actually plug into our platform. Okay, so the challenge we have as XAPT is how do we manage these partners better? Because there are many partners that can plug into the ecosystem and add a lot of value. And we're open to that, right? We have a strategy that says, look, if we can't build it, we should partner with best of breed, mm-hmm. or we should buy some IP from somebody that has great software. Okay, we can't build everything. Okay, so that's the kind of mindset that we have, and I've been driving this a lot, is to say, listen, let's look at more partners, let's look at people that can help complement what we do, but we have to manage them better. Okay, Microsoft has a cadence where they release. They have 8 releases per year just to refresh what the dealers are doing on the platform, etc. So we have to make sure all these partner solutions fit into those 8 releases, right? So there's a lot of tight collaboration that has to happen throughout this whole process, right? Yeah. So a lot of things happen behind the scenes that, for the guy driving the bulldozer looks pretty easy, right? So
simplify. I mean, it goes back to your word at the very beginning, Mohan. Yeah, because we always can strive to do that, because working with Microsoft can sometimes be complex, but we try to simplify that through this end-to-end engagement. And you're spot on. I mean, using the power of the ecosystem, partner-to-partner connections, to your point, with software integrators who are actually doing deployments or exposed to these very specific industry scenarios is an important thing, but also working with other ISVs, to your point. And then Fast Track is one of those great value propositions that we provide to ensure not just for our end customers, but for partners mm-hmm. themselves. When a customer says, okay, I'm ready to go all in, making sure that based upon a customer scenario, you have the right points of view to allow not just you as an ISV, but also our customers to make the right mm-hmm. choices at the very beginning to make that implementation successful. So I know with the 5 minutes we have left, I do want to shout question that came through, a couple from John, and you touched upon it Mohan, but I think this was a good one where, because you're a global company, where are you seeing the most success in the world, and is it aligning to where the construction is happening around the world? Do you see any synergies between where you're finding opportunity and maybe where your organizations and where your kind of operations are based and driving that engagement? I'm assuming is a correlation or not a correlation to kind of where your operations are actually being run?
Yeah, great question, John. Thank you for that. What we're seeing right now is obviously last year, a lot of the dealers had a really challenging year, right? In fact, most businesses in the world, maybe except for Microsoft, had a really difficult year, right? Because the whole supply chain everywhere in the world was choked, right? I mean, you could not get a loaf of bread easily on your table, right? And if you back that up all the way to a farmer somewhere in a field with a piece of equipment, milling some wheat and getting it through the process, right? So the entire world was really frozen based on the challenges with COVID. So what we're seeing now are things are starting to open up, okay? And I think the largest potential we have right now is in the United States, right? So we're seeing the US is recovering very quickly. We're seeing a lot of projects around infrastructure, construction, and a lot of things that are changing in the US, okay? So we are spending and staffing up right across the company. We have a number of open positions we're hiring and staffing up in product and delivery and support, et cetera. But we're spending a lot of time in the US market. Number one, we've got a great platform. We've had some success stories in the US and in Americas region. And we're also seeing things are changing rapidly. So the dealers, if you look at where Caterpillar is, their results are obviously much stronger this year to date, than they were last year. Okay. So things are back to 2020 levels in the US. So we're seeing some trends there very quickly. Things are also opening up in Western Europe as well. So we're seeing some trends in Western Europe, which are positive. And we're also building and staffing up teams in Europe. So lots of questions. We aren't spending a lot of time growing the Asia Pacific region yet, because right now our focus is how do we get our largest customer, Sime Darby, to the cloud. So today they've got 5,500 users on an older version of Dynamics AX. And our challenge right now is how do we get that dealer to the cloud? So 5 legal entities, 18 countries, 5,000 users. So I don't want to grow too much. I don't want to chase too many opportunities in Asia Pacific until we get it right with SDI. Okay, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. So US number one, EMEA number two, and I would say Asia Pac in terms of growth, okay, and focus. Okay.
That's great, Mohan. So with the few minutes we have left, we definitely want we do have one more question I want to ask, but before we get to the question, give a little bit more details. I mean, because you talked about one of your major customers in itself, like what are some of those things, the stories, maybe a brief story about the success that you've seen with a dealer, some great outcomes that you've been able to see with that delivery of simplification to a cat dealer, or maybe one of the other ones that maybe come top of mind, just as if you want to share a customer story of success.
Yeah, I think probably I would refer back to our customer in Minneapolis, which was a significant accomplishment for us. And when I say us, I think it's obviously the customer, it's Microsoft, it's some of the partners. There are 3 specific solution partners that are in the ecosystem that actually, have brought solutions to the table as well. And then our team in the US and Europe, right? So it was a huge collaborative effort to get this customer live. They've been in project now for a number of years. So just to give everybody a flavor, these are very long. First of all, the long sales cycles, right? To really look at purchasing an ERP, it's a long process. Just to do a lot of deep dives and discoveries. Challenge we had last year was all of these things are done remotely.
That's right.
So you can imagine a couple of months ago, Anna and the team here on the phone, they did some demonstrations for some prospects, and they would bring 50 to 70 people on a conference call. Imagine running a deep dive or a executive briefing with 70 people on a call, right? So we kind of shifted. So it's long sales cycles. But I think if I fast forward to Minneapolis, was a project's been running now for a number of years, 2.5 years. And finally, we were able to bring everything together and take the solution live, right?
That's great.
And in the middle of that, Microsoft was also changing some of their what we call the service fabric and infrastructure to be able to, drive more better performance and to serve the end users much better. So we went through a lot of change, So kudos to the customer, to Microsoft, to our team, the partners, just to make this happen. And all of the U.S. dealers, and there are 45 of them in the U.S., were watching, the success of this thing before they make a decision, right? So it's a very small community, the equipment dealers globally. It's a very, very small community, unlike automotive and truck and everything else. So news and words travels very fast. So you have to go to the game and look after your customers and your projects. If not, it's a reference business, right? So,
That's right.
But yeah, I would say probably our biggest accomplishment was just getting our customer live in Minneapolis this year. That was significant. Yeah.
No, that's great, Mohan. And I love the customer first mentality, because it's really true. It's like just making sure that when someone makes a big investment like these types of situations and it's simplifying their business, making sure it actually is running, because it's the lifeblood of their organization. So last question before we wrap it up and really call to action to Jean, and I apologize, I'm not saying your name correctly, but any high level things that you want to talk about? We can of course get your team connected to Sajid, but any commentary you'd like to kind of share about what does XAPT roadmap look like long term, of how you're providing, again, even deeper capabilities for dealers?
Yeah. So what's next? And I think we are in the middle of sort of defining this what's next at the moment. So one of the things that where I think we need to get to is really around data. And I could spend the next 30 minutes talking about data and analytics, but what the dealers are doing. And it's interesting, because if you just look at SDI for a minute, who is our largest customer, they've got like 8 to 9 terabytes of data. And that grows by, a couple terabytes per year. So really, it's what do we do with data? And the dealers are all saying, okay, so I bought this big ERP from you. It's very expensive. It takes a long time to put it in. So when I've done this, what do I do next, right? How do I get after the data to get to some predictable insights and all the cool things we tell them, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we are. We're at the next level of looking at insightful data and analytics and business intelligence, et cetera, okay? They're also getting a lot of cool information from the manufacturer as well. So Caterpillar monitors everything on every piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. So how do we take that data source and consolidate the data with what they get from the retail dealer and start to predict more things in the future? And that's kind of where we are next, is right on that cusp of getting the analytics figured out. Okay.
That's great. No, that's great, Mohan. And it's aligned too, because even our own R&D team that runs and builds Dynamics, James Phillips, has architected his whole team, as you're probably aware, around that as well. Because when you think about business process, what does that rely on? It relies on data. And so I love your comment, because it is truly the scenario of predictive analytics, IoT, artificial intelligence, to provide an end user some idea or capability to know what to do, because it can look at all the data and predict what's potentially going to happen. So why don't we close out, Mohan? What are some call to action? Like, if you're any of the people listening, maybe their equipment dealer, they came across this video and go, oh my gosh, I never realized that there's this scenario. Yeah. How do people learn more? What are some other recommendations besides, of course, reaching out to you on LinkedIn? What's a call to action you'd love to have?
Yeah, I think a great place to start is just go to our website. I mean, everybody's got a website in the world, right? So it's XAPT.com, and start from there. We also have Anna Miller, who's on the call. She kind of drives the global pre-sales activities for us around the world. Also a great resource. I think we have a brochure, electronic brochure,
right there,
leave behind as well.
Yep.
Perfect timing. So I think we've got a great 2-page summary of who we are, what we do, and how we help the industry. So good to have some of that. I would suggest you click on the link and download some of this information as well, right? So, but happy to have a chat with anybody anywhere in the world. Okay, reach out to me on LinkedIn or hit us up on XAPT.com, and we're happy to have a discussion with you.
Love it. Well, let's just give Mohan a break so he can enjoy family time. So you can wait until maybe a few days when he comes back from his well-deserved,
wonderful,
well-deserved holiday. So with that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. So we do this every Monday. Next week, we're going to have another one of our great BizApps ISVs, totally different from K3, from XAPT and Mohan. K3 retail, an ISV that does retailing solutions in fashion and retail. So look forward to that next week at 8. But Mohan, thank you so much to you and the entire XAPT team for such a great partnership, investing time with me today on the phone call, and enjoy your rest of your time off, and continue to be well and be safe. And thanks everyone for joining today.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks again,
Mohan.
Ryan.
Take care. Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.